Ladies and gentlemen, after a long break from it, I wanted to finish up my mini series on teams that work great with 1 or 0 relics. I'm going to have 4 teams I'm going over today. I just got away from it and haven't been able to finish it out until now. But the first one I'm looking at, I actually don't want you to look at that other one down there, though you probably saw it. The first one I'm looking at today is the Treya team, and this is the lineup I use in Grand Arena, even at the higher end of Kyber 1. Talon and Savage Press as the last two. But the building blocks of the team are Treya, Scion, and Nihilus. And even though I have all these Zetas, there's only a couple, or really just the Treya Zetas are the most important. Like for Nihilus, his Zeta is just at the start of each enemy turn, he inflicts health down on them, which helps a little bit. And this is a kind of a low damage team, and it kind of revolves around, except when Savage gets in there and does some good damage, or if you have the Treya Omicron, she's going to do a lot of damage. It kind of focuses around getting to the Annihilate with Nihilus, and he was the first character to get an Annihilate ability. It was game-changing when it came out. I was like, how can this possibly be? This character is so broken, but he's actually a pretty balanced character, and he's got a long-lasting kit. Just instantly defeats them with a cooldown of 8 and gains max health equal to their max health, which is great. And the way you get there quickly is you drain the force from them, and this is just an Omega ability, no Zeta, but it's a great one. It's not a high damage dealing ability, but you're gonna increase cooldowns on the enemy, which is awesome. Try to do it when they're all debuffed, because then they can't resist the cooldown increase, and then you reduce your cooldowns by the amount of cooldown increases you got. This basic is pretty good, just dispels debuffs on it, very, very helpful. Don't worry about his lead, even though a lot of people do kind of like his lead. But he inflicts damage over time on random enemies on his turn, so that will get some debuffs out there. And he's also stacking his own max health a ton when Scion or Treya are inflicted with debuffs. So I kind of that's kind of the engine of what you want to get to. That's how you do damage. But Treya is the engine of the team. Of course, she's the leader. She's got a very unique lead, very interesting lead. The Zeta is not absolutely necessary in all cases, but it's very good. Without the Zeta, all you get is 40% crit avoidance, 40% potency, and healing when hitting debuffed enemies. What you get with the Zeta is 35% max health damage to enemies stacking out of turn. And if they gain a buff outside their turn, they lose 50% offense until the end of the turn. So a lot of survivability there, a lot of extra damage. It depends if you want to get this Zeta really early. It depends how you're going to use it. If you're going to use it on Geos or something that does a lot of attacks out of turn, definitely get this first. I do think it's better overall, but the Lord of Betrayal unique is crazy strong. So there's the Omicron, which is crazy strong in Grand Arena. But then just the normal Zeta, which is great too. This, without the Zeta, just gives her bonus protection. And when an ally Nihilus or Scion are critically hit, she gains 12% offense for 2 turns, so she can build up quite a hit. Her Zeta is you just dispel all debuffs on your team, so they don't stick. Unless they're locked, they're going to shrug off, but you are going to take some damage. So there is a trade-off there. I actually didn't apply this for quite a long time, surprisingly, but it's very good. And you need it if you're going to get this Omicron, which I'm not going to dive into because I talked about the Omicron before. It's crazy strong. But this series is going to be talking about 0 or 1 relic. So for this team, I think you don't need any relics for it to work really well. If you want to relic someone, probably, Savage, just because he's standalone. But if we're talking about a trade team specifically, you kind of want Scion just because he's the tank. His taunts are weird. He only taunts when they have pain on them. You give out pain by using his AoE. Or the Lord of Pain unique. So his Zeta inflicts pain for 3 turns on enemies that damage him. So if they damage him, he's going to taunt against them. They're going to have to keep damaging him. But his unique is pretty strong without the Zeta. 100% defense, 100% tenacity against enemies with pain. Although the Zeta helps get the pain out there a lot more often. And his Held by Hatred is the first instance of Hatred. Now Riva has Hatred, but it's kind of a broken buff. 25% critical chance, 100% defense and offense, and when defeated, revive with 100% health and 100% turn meter. and it's an undispellable debuff. So this is actually probably one of the top 5 debuffs buffs in the game. When I did my ranking, I completely botched ranking hatred. It's crazy. When he gets to this, he just gives himself an extra life and makes himself really hard to kill and a little bit harder hitting, though he's not a big damage dealer. Then Savage, he's the 5th in the late game, and early game would be good too if you're not able to solo stuff with him. Otherwise, you want to sub in like Sith Empire Trooper, some kind of tank to help soak up damage. He's all about his Omicron, which I'm not going to dive into because it's very complicated. I've talked about the Omicrons before, but it makes him a machine. He recovers health and protection all the time, gains tons of buffs, very hard to kill, and makes him much more deadly. Then Talon is kind of the most simple analysis out of all these teams. Don't worry about her base. Well, her basic has an ability block on it, which is pretty nice. But don't worry about her specials, because she does crap damage. She's an attacker, but she functions like a support. I don't have this Omicron. You don't need it. She just basically provides a savior mechanic to the leader with that other unique. But the best thing about her is... Oh no, it is this one. The best thing about her is this unique. And is this the Zeta? I gotta check that. No, it's not a Zeta. The Zeta is on the other one. But this is an amazing boost. Just Sith allies gain 30% max health, 30% offense, and 20 speed. This makes her really flexible with any Sith team, Sith Empire, under Malgus or Revan, or with Sith Eternal Emperor. But the 20 speed is probably the most important. I mean, max health and offense is awesome too. And then when she falls below 100% health, Sith tanks gain retribution on taunt for 1 turn, so kind of a fail-safe. And she's gonna be stealthed a lot. She gets stealth pretty often with her abilities. This is when the leader would be defeated. She dispels all debuffs on her and equalizes health with the leader, which is pretty strong. And then the Zeta part of it is whenever the leader is damaged, all allies gain 5% turn meter. So this has not historically been a turn meter trained team, but that kind of makes it that way. So yeah, there's a very strong team. It comes into play in a lot of places where you're at least expecting it. I didn't expect this to be the only consistent counter to Riva, and that's for later game. That's when you're all reliced up and you got the Omicrons and everything. But it's just a surprising team. It's an old kit, or these are old kits that have hung around for a long time. And if you're early game, if you want to get them up to gear 12 or even just gear 11, you can do a lot with them because you're not worried about your actual damage output. And you just need to make sure Sign is pretty survivable, so load them up with protection primaries. Next team we're talking about that works with really well without a lot of relics, it's the Padme team. And the reason they work so well without relics is because their damage comes from courage. And so whenever you get protection up, on their turn you're going to be dispelling it and getting a bunch of courage, and then for each 5 stacks of courage you're going to deal bonus damage equal to 40% of the target's max health, which is quite a lot. You can I think it maxes out at like 30 stacks for the damage, and you do 6 times 40, so 240% of their max health, which is enough to one-shot a lot of people. She's also gives it makes your team very durable. They have 50% max health, and while they have protection up, they can't be debuffed and can't be critically hit. It's insane. They dispel their own protection up a lot, so that condition doesn't last as long. But I think you start out with some undispellable protection up. Oh yeah, so when you're getting attacked out of turn, or a Galactic Republic ally, you gain 40% protection up and dispellable if Padme's the leader, 10% if not. And that's really where their survivability comes in, and that doesn't get dispelled for courage, it just stays with them. And they're always recovering 5% health if they lose protection up. Can't lose or gain bonus turn meter. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's nice you can't lose turn meter, but it also makes Yoda not as useful with them. But that's fine because he goes with Jedi most of the time. I'm going to keep diving into Padme's kit. The heal here is incredible. It dispels all debuffs and gives 50% health even without debuffs. But if you have a bunch of debuffs and Padme gets to her turn, she turns it around so fast and you're going to just wipe out the whole other team. once you start taking turns. So crazy. She also has the mass assist with a stun on the kick. So her 2 Zetas are probably the most important, and that's why they work well without relics. But if you want to have a relic on the team, I'd probably put General Kenobi. He's one of the most versatile characters in the game, and he has pretty much a permataunt on him if you give him the Zeta. So if you give him the Zeta, then if all allies are GR, he taunts for 1 turn whenever another GR ally loses any protection up, which is constantly happening because they dispel it themselves. And that means if they have protection up and take damage, they're losing some protection up, so he taunts. He's also giving out Foresight like crazy, or critical hit immunity. On his basic, he's giving out Foresight. And his special, you got another full dispel, so this is amazing. Obviously, you can't get him to relics if you don't have him 7 stars, and it takes some time with the tank raid. So if you don't have him available to get to Gear 13, and you really can't wait, you really want to give someone Gear 13, I'd probably do Anakin, just because he does a lot of damage and he's got a good ship. Padme is another consideration, but they could all just stay under, and you're dealing tons of damage. But Anakin is the damage dealer. At my level, I always use him with Qui-Gon Jinn, but at a lower level, he was built to go with Padme. So he's always running to the aid of allies that fall below 50% health. So with this ability, he takes a bonus turn without the Zeta, and his next attack does 100% more damage if all allies were Galactic Republic at the start of the battle. I think when they reworked him and gave him this ability, how it is, they, at least at first, they didn't have the all Galactic Republic allies, and he was doing some crazy stuff. They also reduced the amount of damage initially because it was too high, in their opinion. But if you give him the Zeta, Padme gets a bonus turn too after Anakin's bonus turn, which is amazing. His AoE is a big one. Does a lot of great things. If you have Padme on the team, he dispels all buffs on the enemy team. For each critical hit, which is a lot of them because he has a pretty high crit chance, you gain protection up 10% stacking. So you can get 50% protection up. And you're also giving out offense up and crit chance up to the whole team. So very strong. His basic's really great too. Could inflict healing immunity and buff immunity. So he's very strong. You don't have to worry about his leadership. So he's a great candidate for relics. Ahsoka Tano probably wouldn't give her relics. Her role is to assist all the time. If it's a GR leader, any special ability, she's going to assist. That's her Zeta, but this is a really worthwhile Zeta. So it might be the 3rd one I apply, even before Anakin's. Absolutely before Anakin's, I think. And she gets extra stats based on crit immunity. But the main thing is she's assisting all the time, and she has a dispel on her basic. And you can't avoid it if they have Foresight. So even if it's like a Yoda team, they have Foresight, tons of buffs, she's still going to dispel. Her special is pretty good, but I don't need to dive too much into it. Mace is just a great 5th. I mean, way back in the day, you'd use C-3PO as a 5th, but I really recommend him with Commander Luke Skywalker. And Yoda could be a 5th. He does get protection up, but he's best used with Jedi. So Mace, since he got a rework, he's a fantastic option. I don't have any of the Omicrons. I have all the Zetas. He acts like a tank, but with resilient defense, gets a lot of counter chance. His basic is pretty good with ability block and bonus damage equal to his max health. So you want to give him a lot of max health. He gives himself turn meter, so he does a lot of stuff. With the Galactic Republic team, he does a lot more things than just with a Jedi team. If he inflicts Shatter Point, which is his special debuff on a random enemy, he can target them. Even if there's a taunt, he can get around it. And this is my favorite ability with him. He swaps turn meter, which is always so nice. So Padme can't gain or lose turn meter, but if you swap, it gets around that. So you can swap to the character with the most turn meter, give them that turn, and then you get back to another Mace turn really quickly. And Shatterpoint, he's just really messing them up. He's reducing their defense max health and offense by 10% when he hits them for the rest of the battle, which is crazy good. And he's got a pretty convoluted kit, but I don't want to keep going on and on and on about one team. Sorry. In summary, General Kenobi, first option for relics, and after that, probably Jedi Knight Anakin, then Padme, but probably not Ahsoka. And Macy do kind of want that, but early on, probably wouldn't prioritize him for that. All right, next up is Iden Versio, and hopefully I don't have to talk too long about this team. It's kind of simple. It's all about Iden. She has the complicated kit. If you're going to have one relic, probably, I don't know, probably make it Shore, actually, because he can help survive. And if Iden dies, it's fine. So she's just like a zombie. She's a crazy leader, given so many bonuses. Her Omicron is great. I don't know if it'd be like one of the first ones I give. I'd probably give it to like Savage or Wampa or something. But just looking at her thing without the Omicron, Omicron, she gives all Imperial Trooper allies 35% critical chance, 35% offense, and 35 speed. Very good amounts. And then if you meet all the conditions, which is Imperial Trooper, no droids, no leaders, when you attack out of turn, you get 2% offense, crit damage after 2 turns, and you have 100% counter chance, which I think is the best thing. She slows down enemies with vulnerable. She does crazy stat boost. Another big thing is her special buff, We Adapt or Die, which is overpowered if it weren't so limited to crappy characters. 30% crit chance, 30% offense, and 30 speed. Revive with 70% health if defeated, and then recover 80% health and 80% turn meter, which is crazy. And it comes to you on this dispel ability. You want to be strategic because Iden's going to get the first move unless it's like Han or Watt on the other team, but she gets 100% turn meter at the start. It's just crazy. And then you can usually start with this ability, which is another group of overpowered mechanics in a way, especially for early game. It's a AoE, mass assist, it dispels, and it stuns them. So it's kind of crazy impactful, especially against rebels because they can't resist it. So for 3v3, she is an absolute menace, and her basic hits 3 times most of the time if you have meet all the conditions. And then the question is what lineup to use. I don't have Snowtrooper built up to relics. I probably could. I just want to be stingy with my relic mats. But if you're starting from scratch, I'd probably go for a lineup like this. Death Trooper and Short Trooper are probably the easiest call, because Death Trooper, he has his AoE Dispel, and once someone goes down, or if you kill them with Terminate, you can keep them down forever, and that really helps with a lot of revive teams you're facing. This is a great counter to Mon Mothma, and that really helps prevent those revives there. He gives the team a little bit of boosts. I mean, they have 10% health steal, which isn't amazing. Honestly, his stuff is built for Krennic, but he never goes with Krennic because Krennic is terrible. You can get a daze on the basic. You can stun them if they're already dazed. He has a lot of great stuff, but mainly the Death Mark is the thing that makes him indispensable in this team. And Stark, he's kind of a switch hitter between this team and the Command Imperial Trooper team. He increases the offense with crit chance up, crit damage up, which is really kind of what they need. They need extra damage. He's got an AoE stagger here with this. And his unique helps for, he removes turn meter from enemies. He recovers 7% health, 3% protection, which isn't much, but removes 1% turn meter for all enemies for each active Empire ally and doubled for IT, which is going to be 10% turn meter. So it's kind of nice. That part works probably better with a Command Imperial Trooper team because you're going to keep their turn meter down. But he's a great character there. Another option is Range Trooper. You don't see him here because I like using it with the other Imperial Trooper team. But Snow Trooper also is good for damage. And when any unit's defeated, he gains 30% turn meter and gives other Empire allies 15% and gives them extra 20% crit damage. And he's kind of able to spam this AoE, give everyone crit damage up for 2 turns, and if he crits, he's going to reduce it. So that really helps with the damage output. That's one of the problems with my lineups is I use Magma Trooper. He doesn't do a ton of damage. Or sometimes you're using Stormtrooper and he doesn't do a lot of damage. But Snow would really help with that problem. And sure, the one you want the relics on. If you do give relics, which you don't need, you can use them all low gear and it's going to work just fine. is short just because he's going to help survive for when you don't have that revive buff. And he gives everyone turn meter while he's taunting, and he needs to be able to take a lot of hits. So other option is Aiden for Relics, but she doesn't need the survivability aspect of it, but it can help because she probably does the most damage. And that's just a quick take on the Aiden Trooper team. And last but certainly not least is the Sith Empire team under Darth Revan lead without Malgus. This might be surprising because this is a team that a lot of people like to use a lot of relics on, and they do make use of it, but the reason they don't need a ton of relics is all the control they have. Starting with Darth Revan's fear mechanic from this insanity. If he, this is kind of like the dunk, he looks like he's dunking on the enemy leader. If he hits the enemy leader, everyone gets fear and they're missing their next turn, and then you could just start going to work on people. And his leader's crazy, gives tons of extra damage. Plus 50% extra crit damage, and for each of their own debuffs, they get 15 speed, 10% crit chance, so they're getting tons of extra turns. They don't gain extra damage from the debuffs, which I kind of thought they did, but I think that's baked into the ferocity debuff. So they're getting tons of extra speed, they run circles around people, they're immune to turn meter reduction while they're debuffed. And they're always debuffed because, where's Ferocity? Because he gives out Ferocity to his team constantly, and though it's nominally a debuff, it acts mostly like a buff. Because each stack you get 8% offense potency, and a lot of times you have 15 stacks, it's like 120% offense and potency, and losing a lot of defense, but it's crazy. That just helps them do tons of damage even when they're not high relics. And they're very survivable. You can't, where is it? Yeah, enemies assisting or tagging out of turn, they can't assist or attack out of turn against Revan, so you can't mass swarm him. So he gets extra survivability like that. Bastila beefs him up so much with the Sith Apprentice unique. Without the Zeta, you're just giving 50% defense and tenacity to the leader. With the Zeta, you give them potency. No, what is it? Give them potency and foresight at the start of the battle to Revan, so that helps them survive. And also Force Bond, plus 70% max health and health steal. It's crazy bonuses to Darth Revan and Bastila, so they get an extra boost in survivability. She has her own fear mechanic, spams debuffs, which are independent of relics, so you don't get extra potency from relics. And you're going to nerf their damage there. She's got an ability block on the basic, and Wild Lightning turns into an AoE if you attack someone with Shock, which is pretty common once you use the Darth Revan AoE. I don't have Malik here because he is, he's an unlock later down the road. But if you have him, definitely slot him on the team, get rid of Sith Empire Trooper or something. And he'd probably be the one relic to use here. So I don't have him here. This is just kind of like a baby Darth Revan team, which is still amazing without Malik. And HK-47, he works well with Afra now, but before he was basically only useful with Darth Revan. He does tons of damage with Revan. Let me see his loyalty to the Maker Zeta. If Darth Revan's the leader, he gets 50% defense, offense, potency, and tenacity. And lots of crit avoidance for each Jedi enemy. I still don't have this Zeta because it's kind of limited or very niche. And if Sith Empire ally goes down, he resets the cooldown on this big damage ability, which can do crazy damage on this team, even if he's not in high relics. So you can probably have the whole team not at relics and make them work just fine with all that control. But first relic, probably give it to Darth Revan, because he is doing a lot of damage. He's probably the most important. He's also going to be a capital ship pilot, or a fleet commander soon. Marauder works really well in this team because he's gaining lots of bonuses from debuffs. It's 2% offense, potency, and crit chance for each debuff on all characters. So when you have all that ferocity going around, it pumps him up a ton. So he does benefit a lot from relics because his damage is even higher to boost. But you don't totally need it. He's still going to be a good option, and he's a ship pilot. So great character there. And Sith Empire Trooper, he's the stand-in for Malik until you get him. What's nice about him, he doesn't have any Zetas, he's a pre-taunt, and he's very durable. You just load him up with, I don't know why I think I'm short on protection primary defense mods. I'm going to just give him all defense mods and protection, and he doesn't need any speed. He just sits there and takes some hits. It makes it kind of annoying for another team if you have him on defense, or if you have him on offense. If you're taking this team on offense, you get some added security of the first hit's going to go on him. But yeah, I really love this team. I think it's a pretty strong early game team once you unlock Revan. You need a little bit of gear to do that, like gear 10 or something on character, or gear 11 on some characters like Bastille and HK. But pretty easy to get overall, and yeah, it's going to do wonders for you in the long run. So that's it for this series on teams that work with 0 or 1 relic. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed my, I don't know, maybe a bit hurried analysis of each team, but we started with Palpatine, got all the way down to Sith Empire. Let me know if you think there's some other teams I need to cover that I haven't in any of the previous videos on this, called the Minimalists. And if you liked, give me the thumb up, give me that thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Peace.